Welcome everyone to the regular council session, Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc on Monday, May 15th, 2023. We'll start with a land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that we are on a territory covered by the Longwoods Treaty. We are thankful to the generations of people who have taken care of this land, including the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, the Munsee Delaware First Nation, and the Oneida Nation of the Thames. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global indigenous people that now call Strathroy-Caradoc their home. Okay, we're ready to begin. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I am declaring an indirect pecuniary interest in regards to 2.1 as I sit as a member of the Board of Directors for the Foundation.
Thank you. Any others? Seeing none. We're going to skip ahead a little bit tonight, folks. Item 2, delegations petitions from the Strathroy Middlesex General Hospital Foundation. Chair Roman Lawlick is on his way, and when he arrives, we'll cut in and begin with those proceedings. We'll go to item 3, approval of minutes. What we'll do, we'll approve all 3 at once unless anyone has any errors, omissions, or questions. Councillor Kennis.
Making the motion.
Oh, making the motion, okay. The motion by Councillor Kennis, seconded by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Go to item 4, drainage matters. Consideration of drainage report. Director Strauss, will you carry that?
Thank you. I'm actually just going to turn it over to Mike DeVos, who's on the line tonight.
Okay. It's all yours, Mike.
Okay, thank you. I can't turn my video on right now, but it is a relatively small project, so I'll just do this verbally. The Mill Road drain is a small drain. It's an incorporation of an existing swale and surface culvert to provide a sufficient outlet for the area being petitioned. The swale and the surface culvert will become a municipal drain for future maintenance purposes. So there's no physical work being done at this time, just the establishment of a legal and sufficient outlet for the area. And I'll stop and have questions.
Further, any questions? Seeing none, were there any requests? I don't see anyone present, so I don't think anyone will be adding their name or removing their name to the petition. Comments or questions from council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adopt the engineer's report for the Mill Road Drain 2018 and give first and second reading to provisional bylaw number 15-23 for the project. Deputy Mayor McGuire, second by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mike. Yep, thank you. Move on to item 5, communications. Did anyone want to discuss? There is a recommendation on 5.1, but before we get to that, did anyone want to discuss any of the other correspondence? Okay. Seeing none, we do have a recommendation in front of us on the Strathroy Hometown Festival that the application for temporary noise permit for the Hometown Festival be approved if there are no objections. Someone to carry a motion? Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Are there any unfinished business? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to item 7, building and planning, and Deputy Mayor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to hand this over to Director Huff.
Thank you. Through the chair to council members, tonight we have Tim Williams, Senior Planner for the County of Middlesex, presenting a report on a zoning bylaw amendment for 311 Aller Street in Strathroy. I'll turn it over to Tim.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council, Deputy Mayor, Chair of Building and Planning. So this evening, we have the item of 311 Eller Street. And this is a project that was before you for a statutory public meeting earlier this year, and was the subject of some extensive comments from the community, at which time the applicant went back and reviewed options and the like. And I'm just going to right now just share a screen just so we have that up at the same time. And so what has happened is the applicant heard a number of council members as well as the community in their discussion, and heard, I think, maybe specifically Councillor Brennan in his comment that he hoped that there would be some assistance from the municipality if they were to look to move elsewhere. So what has happened is the applicant has explored that option in moving their operations from the current industrial location that it's in, and now they've changed their application, and now it only is a temporary expansion of the parking lot adjacent to the industrial use on 311 Eller, which is the rear portion of that property. So it's all the same details as before, but I will just note it as before. The parking lot is in yellow. They were proposing to have cars and use it currently for cars in this area, and the occasional cars or trucks in this area. So what the proposal is to establish that parking in the rear, but it would also establish a number of requirements, one of which being a 3-meter buffer between the, we call it the landscape area, but it would delineate from the property line to the edge of where the parking would be. We would also have them establish a fence where there wasn't one already, and adjacent to the properties. And the last piece was that this, I'll call it a buffer strip, would be clearly delineated so that it wouldn't be a situation where those that were parking there would easily be able to just use it as parking, but that it would still, it wouldn't be just, let's say, dirt or gravel, that it would be either grass or something like that. This is just a slightly larger version of that same plan. So that's what's come before you up to this point. So the statutory public meeting, I talked about that occurring on February 21st. They have received these comments, except for the last set of comments there on the bottom, which were the neighborhood's concerns, which they heard during the statutory public meeting. No new comments have come out since then. However, they have been, as I said, speaking with the municipality and fruitful discussions about how they would do a number of things. One was that they would start to look for another location. But in order to do that and still run a viable business, they need some time to be able to move that business. So they are asking for this temporary expansion of the parking for a period of 2 years. That 2 years would allow them to find a place and be able to move into it and be operating at that new location. It could also potentially give them an opportunity to construct a building if it was done early on in the early part of this year. So, these are the pieces that we've heard from the applicants. They also spoke about the fact that they heard some of the other items that came up during the public meeting. And while they're not related to the parking lot, they want to be good neighbors, and they have been exploring different fueling options so that they can have less vehicles on the road. They are looking at making different arrangements for trucks that are parked overnight while the refrigeration units are running, to try to assist with those sounds overnight while the neighbors are sleeping. Along with the other things like the fence and setting back the parking spaces from the property line. So that's where things are at. It's changed the application, but planning staff have evaluated now this new application. You have a staff report that's before you on that. And I won't go through all of the different details, but I will say that this new temporary expansion of the parking lot is certainly a different application. This is a property that has a residential designation, and so a temporary use such as this has a different set of criteria that are evaluating, or that it's being evaluated upon. Things like the establishment of the parking lot won't result in it not being able to be removed. Well, it is a parking lot. It's not a 12-story building or something like this where the investment is so high that no one would remove it after it's over. And there's ways to mitigate, or there would be no impacts on the surrounding area. Well, there will be some noise impact of having the cars parking there, but having the fence and some distance from the edge, and knowing that it's for a period of 2 years, should alleviate these types of concerns. And so in terms of the policy analysis, when we're looking at this application, planning staff were able to support an application for the temporary parking lot. As part of the parking, pardon me, that wasn't supposed to be a tongue twister, but it was. As part of a temporary parking bylaw, we have a requirement, or we require, as Strathroy-Caradoc requires, a temporary use agreement to be prepared. So subject to a decision tonight, if council were to make a decision to approve the application for the temporary use, then that would also be directing staff to bring back a zoning bylaw amendment and the temporary use agreement. And that would just find its way onto a future council meeting agenda. Wouldn't have a report. This is essentially that report, but we bring it back and it would be on in the bylaw section of that meeting in the future. If it was a refusal this evening, then a notice of decision would be sent out to the applicants and interested parties. So I kind of spoke to this last part a little bit more, only because this is a little bit different. I want to make sure that we hear from council in terms of the decision, and make sure that the agreement, the temporary use agreement, addresses any potential concerns, rather than bringing forward a temporary use agreement this evening and assuming that. Because at the public meeting, this wasn't something that council had an opportunity to speak to. I think those are my remarks. I will, of course, be available for any questions that may arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. So before I put it out to the floor, I do want to let council know there was a meeting between Bern Bray, his worship, myself, and some planning staff, including our economic development officer. So first of all, I was most impressed that Bern Bray actually got in their cars and drove down as opposed to Zooming. So that spoke a lot to me, that we had the CEO, President Margaret Hudson with us, and the Executive Vice President Ian McFall with us, and 2 other senior executives. So they take this matter seriously, and they heard what we said at the last meeting, that we were not interested in growing that area commercially when it's surrounded by residential. So they heard us. They couldn't have been more willing to listen to our concerns and openly put everything on the table, everything from parking the trucks out onto the road to speeding up and down the road because of maybe their employees to, I mean, clearly we're dealing with a single issue here about the parking at the rear of that one house, but the conversation was about the existence of this big commercial lot that, through no fault of anybody's, it's now in the middle of a residential neighborhood. They were wonderful. Clearly, Ms. Hudson said that they might, well, they will be moving up their plans for growth of their business, which means another location. And certainly we will do everything we can to ensure that that is within our municipality. So I thank them for coming down and talking to us. I think it's important that council just understand they came down, they're serious, and allowing this to occur and giving them that 2-year time period allows for this build transformation to occur. I can tell you that since the meeting I have had conversation with Mr. Linker across the street. He was a little bit vocal during, and I say vocal, I mean that he had his concerns, but I think he was kind of speaking for some of the area residents. I've advised him of the meeting and some of the outcomes and why this is now back in front of council. And I think it's fair to say that after our conversation, he was pleased with the outcome and certainly understands you just don't shut this down and move it overnight, and that the 2 years was reasonable. So with that, I will turn it over to my fellow councillors for any questions that you may have. Councillor Kennis.
Just a comment, I think it's a great show of working together, and I think it's a win-win. It's good to hear that an important employer in town is dedicated to our municipality and wants to stay here and is looking to build a new place. So I think this is good, and I totally support it.
I will say when they arrived at the meeting, not only were we talking about this, but they went on to talk about housing in the community, other amenities we have in the community. So they've done their homework. They came in prepared to take a serious look at what was going on. Any other questions from council? If none, we are seeking a recommendation that report ZBA 2-2023 be approved as a temporary rezoning, and that staff be directed to bring forward a temporary use agreement and temporary use zoning bylaw amendment. Do I have anybody to make that motion? Councillor Brennan, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Kennis, thank you. All in favor? That motion has passed. Thank you. With that, I will return to here, with that, I return to my agenda here, and I think it's back to you, Director Huff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. To Council, the next item, 7.1.2, is a request to remove the holding zone symbol for plan of subdivision 39T SC 2001, otherwise known as the Timberview subdivision, and Tim Williams is again here to review the application. Thank you. Tim, I think you're on mute.
Oh, he's still giving her.
Tim, I think you're still on mute. Well, at least he acknowledged us.
I'll keep trying and maybe at one point.
There you are.
You hear me yet?
Yes, we hear you.
Awesome, awesome. Well, that was my presentation. Okay, so, well, I had a really great introduction. I'll try to do it again. It will probably be half as good. So the whole removal application, timber review subdivision, Director Huff did a great introduction with the file numbers and whatnot. I appreciate that. Thank you to the mayor and deputy mayor for allowing me to speak this evening on this item. So this will be one of the first plans of subdivision hold removals that this council has seen. So what I'm going to do is just take 1 second and kind of peel back and just give you a little bit of context, because this is an application, the subdivision was an application that was heard in 2021. It received, at the same time as receiving approval with draft conditions in 2021 from Strathroy-Caradoc, it then went on, the subdivision went on to county council, and county council made a decision on that. Those conditions had to be fulfilled, and they spent some considerable time working on that from 2021 until 2023, working through that. Well, actually 2022. And that's when the plan was registered in 2022. They also at the same time as bringing forward the subdivision, brought forward a zoning bylaw. And that zoning bylaw amendment would allow for a number of different types of housing. They had 2 different zone categories that they had done, an R2-17 and an R2-18. There was also an OS zone to recognize the stormwater management pond, but that did not receive a hold like the 2 this evening that have a hold. And these holds were put in place so that there would not be a situation where somehow there's a gap in the process where someone could build a home without having the subdivision agreement in place and without having the registered plan in place. Meaning, every lot within the municipality that has an R2 zone, let's say, you could build a house on it. So they could get approval and then all of a sudden just build one house. It would have impacts on the overall subdivision. So we placed a hold as part of the zoning to fill the gap between when Strathroy-Caradoc Council approves the zoning bylaw until when the subdivision receives registration. So this subdivision has registration, it has the subdivision agreement, and this R2-18 and the R2-17-H-5, and the H-5 is a hold that is only to be removed once a subdivision agreement is in place. This is written right into the zoning bylaw itself, and what today's meeting is to say, look, they've got all of those pieces, that criteria has been met. They've made an application requesting the hold to be removed. They've made that hold removed. Council, please make a decision on this application, and then there's a draft zoning bylaw amendment that removes the hold on council's agenda tonight. It removes the hold. That's the only thing it does. It doesn't change the zoning bylaw that's in place in terms of the setbacks, the heights, the densities, all of the numbers that were set up originally. those still remain intact. This simply removes the hole, and then it allows the subdivision to move forward through the remaining parts of the process. The remaining parts of the process are people building the homes on each of the lots. The townhouse block can move forward. People can start to live in those blocks. The subdivision agreement now has all of the details and has all of the strengths that the municipality will need to ensure that this is constructed the way that it sees is being appropriate. So that means, eventually assumption, which we've seen some assumptions before council before tonight, where, at some point, they will have built out the subdivision and they will have constructed all of the roads and the curbs and alike. We're not there yet. This is just one step in the process. It's, I would say, in the middle. From a planning perspective, this is near the end. After tonight, you won't see me before council on any of the matters related to the subdivision. It'll be done. You'll see Director Strauss come with assumption at the very end, and there may be some other things that come before council, but probably not. This process will continue to move forward, and that's what I'd like to say tonight. I do know, I'm very much aware of the fact that this application received some attention from the neighbors. One of the items was about notice. And because this is A plus B equals C a process, and there isn't a public input piece to this, there isn't a question that's being asked of council that they have to create a position on, I guess. It's simply, is it in fact the case that the subdivision agreement is done? Yes. Has that received council approval? Yes, it has. Then this should be removed. It still requires a bylaw, and as such, the only people that can do that are council, and so that's why it's in front of you. But that's why it isn't a public process. And there is no requirement under section 36 of the Planning Act to have any notice given to neighbors because of the, I'll call it technical, but it's straightforward, and there is no piece here that raises a question that needs to be answered. With that being said, I am here to answer questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that members of council do have about this, but I just mean that that train of thought doesn't require us to ask a question because it's one or A plus B equals C. Thank you so much. As I said, I'm available for questions, and there is a bylaw on tonight's agenda related to this.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Director Huff, did you want to speak to this at all? Or do you want to take questions from council first? Questions? Questions from council? Oh, sorry, I need to look further over to my left here. Councillor Hempel.
That is perfectly okay. Just knowing that, this came up to us, like Tim said, 2-3 years ago. Some of the issues that the residents are having is, I think, it always comes back to height restrictions and things like that. So what I was going to say, it was more of a comment than a question, is I believe that Tim Williams covered that when he was discussing it. But it is understandable for some to have problems with it, because when you have a neighbor in your backyard and your expectations are, you're hoping that it's not going to be bigger than what you have, it can be fairly frustrating. It's hard when you live in a community for a long time and you have an open space around you, behind you, beside you, what have you, It's hard, it really is. It's hard for people to all of a sudden see a neighbor that's taking away space that they had had for years, green space, empty space, you know. So I am very empathetic towards that, and I understand that, but unfortunately in this situation, it's something that is already transpired. So, and 3 years ago, this was put into place, and the process has been going to the point where it is now. So I guess I just wanted to thank Tim and Jennifer, because I know that this is a tough one, knowing full well that there's always going to be push against this type of thing. Even though you can see it coming, it still stings, right? So anyways, that was my comment.
Councillor Wilsey?
I know I've spoken to you and Director Huff about these questions already, but I just wanted to get them out in council so that the public could hear the answers as well. I'm wondering if Director Huff could speak to how the buildings that have already been started were built before the H was removed, and also if there could be discussion about if there would possibly be any changes where residents could ask, because I've been asked this question, I just want to make sure that we're clear on that, about a noise barrier or some sort of visual barrier between the two properties.
Director?
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor Wilsey. So I'll certainly answer the first question. We'd like some clarity on the location of the fence that you're now speaking to, because I know there is some requirements for fencing, and I just don't have them in front of me, so if you can provide some clarity to that.
I was asked about if there was a chance to put a barrier or something there, if there was something there, or just to review what's there with the public. I thought the answer that we had gotten earlier, that was already decided in the plan of subdivision, and that the point to request anything different was done. That's more what I was looking at there.
So if I can just intercede, because I was part of this conversation as we were trying to research and learn the processes. So are you referencing when we sit on the Committee of Adjustment and we are asked to make a decision about a minor variance, and we will put conditions on that minor variance because it's a variance to the general policy? That's my gut feeling about what you're asking about. And then now that we're into a subdivision agreement, which is not a minor variance, it's a different situation completely. I don't believe that there's a process where we can start asking neighbors to build or not build fences, etc. But I think that's where that line of questioning comes, if that helps you, Director.
Thank you, Chair. So what I was trying to ascertain is, I know that there are some fencing provisions built into the agreement, but the timing of that and exactly where that is, I don't know off the top of my head. If they're not, and I see Tim waving his hands, but I'll just quickly say, if they're not already required as part of the agreement, then that really is a private matter between themselves and the developer or neighbors. So I'll pass it on to Tim to just provide some clarity on that part of it, and then I'll go back to the first question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do like to tag team every once in a while, and so it's good to see that I can help out. But there was some discussion about fences in the past. When this project came forward during the public meeting process and during the open house process, and an agreement was made with the owner of the adjacent property, Mr. McLeod, and the developer agreed to place a fence on his property that runs along a portion of the roadway because he would be, I'll say, exposed to that road. And that is a part of the plan of subdivision, so that we can ensure that it gets built as per the discussion. There wasn't a request from other people at the time of the public meeting or the open house that were asking for a fence to be placed along the property line. So that was not included in the draft conditions that were eventually approved. nor were they a part of the plan of subdivision. So essentially it runs, maybe I can share again, that may make it easier. Maybe I'll share again that plan of subdivision. It is a little bit light, but I'll try to do that, and maybe this will be helpful to staff, to council. So if we can orient ourselves, this is Queen Street. Regent Street comes here, at the extension of Regent Street, sorry, comes here. There's a lot called 15. This is a semi-detached lot. The fence runs along here and then up this way. So the road was essentially adjacent to. Mr. McLeod has made an arrangement that was acceptable to the subdivider, the developer, and then we incorporated those details into the plan of subdivision to ensure that it occurs appropriately or at the right times during the construction process.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there any other questions? Director Huff?
I'll just go back to Councillor Wilsey's through the chair to ask the question, who asked the question about the building permit. So yes, the building permit was issued before the hold was removed, and this is largely because it is, as Tim described, an administrative process. The subdivision agreement as well as site plan agreement were both registered. The plan itself was registered, and that was done back in the fall of this year, and so it was felt that to hold on to the building permit would have delayed the project even further. But certainly permits are never granted until after the agreements and the plans are registered, just to ensure that the municipality continues to be protected. Thank you.
Thank you. I think what we're dealing with tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Huff, and I see Councillor Kennis after, but council of the day that agreed to this subdivision plan said if A, B, and C occur, then the hold comes off. And A, B, and C occurred. The lands have been properly registered, and so what we are doing tonight is housekeeping. Because we need to, because there was something put in place by a council, so we need to, as a council, remove it, but it's merely a housekeeping issue, correct? I see our senior councilors nodding. They've been through this many more times, and not senior in age, but in senior in experience. They've been through this many more times than I, so it's a learning curve. Councillor Kennis.
I'm just going to express a concern that a familiar name is trying to impede the work of the municipality once again, and I think it's outrageous. And I will make a motion that the holding zone be removed, that the H be removed, and that this subdivision can move forward, because we want to see homes being built in the municipality, and these are the type of homes we want to see. Infills that we've been talking about for years, and we went through all of these discussions the last 2 or 3 years, so it's time to move forward.
Thank you. So that's the motion that is written. A little bit different wording, but it's the motion that's written.
Right on.
Thank you very much. Yep. Second, please. Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Thank you. That passes. Proposed new draft provincial planning statement. This will be interesting. Director Huff.
Thank you. Through the chair, myself and Tim Williams will be here to answer any questions. I'm going to briefly summarize some of the changes. I do have a Zoom link to put up onto the screen any slides that council would wish to see for the benefit of ourselves and as well the public. So just to get right into it. So Ontario is making some additional changes to the planning regime in the province. They really seem to enjoy tinkering with planning right now. And so they have posted on the Environment Registry of Ontario a new draft provincial planning statement, PPS. and as well Bill 97. Bill 97, I think, is in its second reading in the legislature, if I'm not mistaken. And so, as boring as the title sounds, the draft provincial planning statement is actually a foundational policy document that tells Ontario how to do land use planning across the province. And the province has made some very significant changes to that document. And I can say probably the biggest changes since 2005 that I've seen, the very year that I started my planning career. I started with a bang, and now here we are again. So what I want to say is that the County of Middlesex, as well as a number of other large municipalities, counties across the province, are starting to provide some feedback on these changes. And so County of Middlesex has already prepared an overview of the changes, and that presentation was attached to the agenda. Really, I don't want to rehash the work that's already been done. So I've kept it as an attachment and didn't get into too much of the details at this point in time. But what I want to do is really just highlight some of, I'm going to say, 4 to 5 big things that we see. And, you know, it's not all negative. I think, you know, there are some good bits in there that provide more flexibility to municipalities and how they manage their own communities, which is great. But maybe that pendulum has swung a little far. So just for us, because we are a mix of a rural-urban municipality, some of the big changes are that the province appears to be opening the door on severances on agricultural land. So they're suggesting 3, some will argue there'll be opportunity for up to 4 new lots created on agricultural parcels out there. And they've made some significant changes to the boundary adjustment process. So they've even removed an entire process called the comprehensive review process, which you will maybe be familiar with, since it's the process that we've been going down and through for the last 2 years. So that's great. And then I will say that they have included in the policy documents some very specific language that tells municipalities in a couple circumstances that we can't be any more restrictive than what they're proposing. And this, again, goes back to the severances, where they're saying that we essentially have to, as soon as the PPS is in place, that we have to follow the rules set by the province. We can't be any more restrictive in that case. And they have provided no direction on natural heritage. So there's an entire section of that policy document that basically has a note through it and says that they'll provide some guidance to us at a future date, but really that's been on hold for a number of years. They've been saying that they've been going to be looking at those policies and just haven't provided any direction to us yet. So that's still on hold. And so the last item I'm going to say is generally just the lack of congruency, I would say, throughout the document. So you have a province that is being very specific about how important it is to get new homes constructed. We have a province that has identified a number of individual municipalities as fast-growing towns and have imposed growth targets on those towns. But as soon as you open up rural severances the way that they have done, I can tell you that that's going to change the market demand very quickly on how many people will choose to live in town if they have opportunities to choose to live elsewhere now. And so I think in some ways they have policies that are inconsistent in their goals and how they're going to achieve them. As well as, you know, potentially providing more opportunity for land speculation and potential increases to land prices that are going to affect farmers. And with more rural severances, that's really going to have an impact on our livestock producers and their ability to expand and relocate and even stay where they want to stay. So with that, maybe I'll leave it there. happy to try to answer some questions that council may have, and also hoping that Tim will be here as well to help me answer some of the questions. Thank you.
Councillor Hippel.
Thank you, through yourself, to Director Huff. So, to put it simply, they basically are taking everything that we have done, you have done, we have done, and they're saying, no, we're changing it. This is what we want. This is what you're going to do. So, in this case, does that basically, it trumps everything that we've done? It creates new policies, et cetera, and do we have to keep changing, or do we just take what the province has done, has written, has said, and just say, okay, I guess that's ours? Do you know what I'm saying? Because I know that we've always, as well with the county, we've taken what they've said and we've created our own, what works for our own municipality, because each municipality is different, right? Within the county, within the province. So none of that really matters. It's just whatever the province says, we're just doing because we don't have a choice. Do you like the simplicity of it?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Hippel. So in some very specific policies, there certainly will not be any flexibility or very limited flexibility. There are other areas of the document that the province has said that there may be some implementation guidelines to assist us in interpreting the policies that they have out and how to execute those policies. So we are still very much in the waiting game. These are draft policies, so we don't know exactly where they're going to land, to be honest. But yes, in some very specific circumstances, the province appears to be very prescriptive in how municipalities across the province are to do things.
I have Councillor Brennan first.
Thank you. Through the chair to the director, then can we say that these policy changes under Bill 97 essentially weaken our local committee of adjustment and really undermine municipal autonomy and centralize a great deal of planning authority in the province?
Director, yes.
Through the chair to Councillor Brennan, yes.
Lots of yeses there. I had His Worship Mayor Grantham, and then Councillor Kennis, and then Councillor Derbyshire.
Yeah, thank you. I think I've been vocal that I do agree with parts of what the provincial government's been doing, specifically with Bill 23. I know some of us may part on our opinions, but this is one bill that made me stop and take pause and said that they're doing too much, specifically in the rural areas, with the severances and what that could do in rural areas. I've always been in favor of, we used to call them retirement lots. So one more lot on a rural area would seem fine to me, but to me this is overstepping. And Director Huff, I don't know, had folks here seen the map that was shared at the county with the potential impact? When you have a look at the number of lots and the loss of agriculture land, it is rather dramatic and rather striking. So again, so far I've been on board with most of what the province wants to do, but not this one. This one is one too many.
Councillor Kennis, I believe, was next.
Yeah, just on the rural, there probably isn't much in the way of meat on the bone, if I could use that term at this point. But so can any farmer, if this gets adopted, sever 3 lots off, or would there have to be a building plan in conjunction with that severance, or can they just, for future purposes, say I want to cut 3 pieces off?
Through the chair to Councillor Kennis. So I'm wondering if maybe Tim, because I know the county has talked at length about this, maybe Tim is able to pop in and speak to that one.
Yeah, so the devil will be in the details on a number of these different items, and many of the councillors have also kind of talked about this central hand coming down and doing a bunch of things. I think what we all need to do is is deal with those details and make sure that they work best for Strathroy-Caradoc. And so one of the things that they talked about is that you wouldn't be permitted to just have the lot placed anywhere on an agricultural property, that it would need to be adjacent to an agricultural use. So adjacent to the existing home that's on the lot, or potentially adjacent to maybe the barns that are on the lot, but that it wouldn't be necessarily, say, plunk 3 all over the place, and that they would need to be brought together. I think that was partly your question, or sort of getting to your question, but those are the pieces that when they haven't done or they've used a 10,000 foot version of explaining it, we will have to work on making it Strathroy-Caradoc.
Councillor Kennis as a follow-up?
Yeah, I guess my question was more, can you just sever the lot, or do you have to have a building plan for that lot before you get the severance? So.
No, you can do it, just sever it.
Okay, well.
Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. Through the chair to, I'm going to say Director Huff, but it could be Tim or Mr. Williams. So on farms that have already severed a house and actually now have a A2, A3, are they opening those lands back up? Or are they excluded from these 3 lots? Because right now you wouldn't be able to, which would then change all these little red dots on here. But if they are opening it up again, then obviously that would put the red dots back there.
Councillor Huff.
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire, that's a really great question, because we're working through that interpretation as well. There is a funny thing that's going on in the policy document is for the severance section, it says for lots that existed as of January 1st, 2023, these policies shall be in effect. So we're wondering why they imposed that date, and if it has something to do with these existing lots, we're not sure. We're really looking to the province to provide some guidance on how to interpret it, whether or not these are opened up to development or not. I will say though that they have continued on with the surplus farm dwelling severances as they are known today. And so if you do a surplus farm dwelling severance, the retained farmlands will require that prohibition on new dwellings still to this day. So that is still in effect. They've just also given you another option.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Kaufman?
So in my length on council, the only time that I can think of when we faced such a drastic change was during the common sense revolution and the rush to amalgamate municipalities, which ended up being proven to drive the cost up of running municipalities. The thing that I see here is I try to put myself into the head of, so if I was a farm owner and my children are not, or maybe didn't have children, are not going to decide to farm, and I'm approaching the time where I might want to retire, to me the common sense thing to do would be to slice those properties off, take the financial windfall, and then sell the farm, right? So we have a significant loss of prime farmland in that process. If I was a younger farmer and I needed an expensive piece of equipment, again, I would be looking at the temptation to sever those properties and get the money to purchase that piece of equipment, and that could be a plus as well as a minus depending on what side of the fence you're on. At the end of the day, I think that temptation will be the economic windfall from that temptation will be too great to resist, and what we'll see is a significant number of laws created where we're putting people in the middle of farm operations, where then we start to deal with the complaints of, well, you know, that farmer's burning manure and I don't like the smell of it. Or, but the bigger financial issue I see is that you know, we have a fair number of roads that, in the rural areas, that don't accommodate a larger increase of traffic, whether they be gravel or tar and chip. And suddenly, we're gonna be faced with a significant number of people living on those roads that are gonna be putting pressure on us to make that financial investment into their roads. And what did we get out of that whole deal? Nothing. Just expense. And so once again, drastic change puts municipalities in the position that it's more expensive to operate, even though the end goal might be something that we agree with. You know, in my experience, to accommodate real change, it takes time and it takes proper planning, and this has not taken place.
Before, I just have a couple of comments here. So these numbers, I hope I have them right, a little information that came to us from county. If implemented as draft, the information that I recall is in Middlesex County alone, there is the potential for 21,000 new residential lots in the rural area. It's 21,000 in the county. What proportion of that is in Strathroy-Caradoc, I don't know, but you can make your own guess. If each one is an acre, that's 21,000 acres of farmland being taken out of production. And if that 21,000 acres was used in our urban areas, that would represent in and around 90,000 homes. It's amazing. And the final lovely thought is, think of any of the subdivisions that are currently on the table in draft form, and will they remain on the table if a potential number of lots, rural lots, open up in Strathroy, because suddenly those very expensive estate lots, as I've referred to them in Strathroy proper, suddenly aren't estate lots because they're only half-acre lots bounding onto the conservation area as opposed to 1 or 2 acre lots in the lovely country. It will have dramatic effects all the way around. And Councillor Wilson.
My question on this is looking over some of the points that are noted on slide 8 with the change in employment policies and a few things there. Should this be something where, with our official plan, maybe because there is going to be so many new residential lots, should our focus, especially in this municipality, go towards where we're going to put commercial and industrial? With so many new residential lots opening up, we need a place for those people to work. We need the tax revenue to keep our balance of commercial, industrial to residential in check. And with the lands that we currently have close to being sold out, I'd suggest that maybe that's where our focus should be, because it looks like residential is going to take care of itself for the near term. And just comments or thoughts from anyone else if they have any on that.
My quick comments are, after discussions, recent similar discussions with staff, would be we are involved in a process looking at a plan to bring in more more lands into our urban boundaries. We're well down that path, and I don't know that the council at this moment is in position to be speaking about that. I think that would take a whole nother conversation of council, because we are in a process. We're going down a pathway that council has approved. So a change from that, I think, requires a very specific methodology. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Unless unless Director Huff wanted to answer on to that. Thank you. Any other questions? I think, one second, are we looking for a motion on this one? I just got to jump back to it. And I think we're looking for a motion to receive, council received report BBP-2023-57 for information. Do I have somebody make the motion, please? Councillor Kennis, seconded by somebody? Councillor Derbyshire, all in favor? Thank you. And with that, I will pass it back to His Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Pardon me? I'm still waiting. We're still waiting? Okay, that being said, then we'll go on to Engineering and Public Works. For that, we'll turn it over to Councillor Saul.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So we have two reports tonight. The first being the water and wastewater not connected fee, and this was a result of a request from Councillor Wilsey, I believe, to cap the fee for the not connected fee, and I'll turn it over to Director Strauss to explain the report.
Thank you through the chair to the council. So thank you for the introduction. But each year, staff, we do bring a report for water and wastewater fees. This report's usually presented to council, I'll say either in November or December. December. So for 2024, we'll be in that time frame for the water rates of 2024. Just a little bit more on where they come from. Our user fees are established through a long-range financial plan that is completed by a third party. The long-range financial plan does give the municipality a forecast of future recommendations on what the fee increases should look like for the next year and beyond that, just to ensure that we have a system that's sufficiently funded by our user fees. The long-range financial plan is required through the Safe Drinking Water Act to be presented to have every 5 years have a plan. Our last one was completed in 2019, so we'll be doing one for next year in 2024. If council does choose to freeze this not connected fee, this will affect other ratepayers at the next longer range financial plan. And then I can just get into some of the financial details on what this will look like. So for 2024, our rates are proposed in our long range financial plan to be a 2% increase for both water and wastewater. In the report, our existing customers, we have 84 residents that are not connected to just water only. That 2% increase for next year would be a 68 cents total per property, totaling 688 cents and dollars. Sorry. For just sewer not connected only, we have 117 residents. That increase per property would be 85 cents, totaling just under $1,200. And then we have 84 total residents that aren't connected to water and sewer together. That would be an increase of $1.53 per property, totaling $1,500. So if we took all of those numbers put together, for everybody this not connected fee would apply for 2024 only, we would be looking at the existing ratepayers savings of $3,433.55. So that's the financial details of what we would not receive under our user fees if we were to freeze that rate. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, I'm looking for any questions or comments from members of council. Yes, Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. Through you to Director Strauss. So that $3,000 is the 84 residents plus 117 plus 84. There's no doubles, no duplicates in there. Okay. So then the $3,000 would be spread out over how many other clients?
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire. So that fee would not be collected by the municipality then. So our user fees, once we go do that next long range financial plan, that would likely affect the existing ratepayers currently.
And how many ratepayers are there, do you know?
I would look at maybe Mr. Dakin for that.
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire, I think we're about 7,800 accounts on the water and wastewater. So close to 8,000.
Yes, Councillor Derbyshire.
Sorry, just to follow up. I guess what I was more saying is instead of that just being taken out of the system, we could spread that over the actual payers if we need to make up. Like if we actually need that money to keep rolling forward as opposed to these people who aren't using the systems. It's very hard. I find it hard to just charge people that don't use the system. It doesn't. I got to wrap my head around that first before we do anything else.
Councillor Wilsey, do you have a comment?
Yeah, this is similar numbers to what I expected. Most of the people who have been on here, I've been approached by quite a few of them, which is why I brought it up. Most of the people who haven't connected are long-term residents. Mostly in Mount Bridges have been the ones I've spoken to, and a lot of them are seniors and are on fixed income, and they find the rises every year hard because it's just something they're not even using. They still have their own private services that they're maintaining in addition to that. My thoughts are is that this isn't that much of a difference, and if we spread it over the 7,800 ratepayers, we're not even $1 or 10 cents a month for everyone else. I don't think they'd even notice that. Or I don't even really know if the municipality is going to notice that much if it comes out of the water budget. My thought, if there was a thought at the end that I'd want to amend, but I just want to see if there's any other questions before I say that from anyone else.
You might as well put your thought out there, and then I'll go to Director Dakin.
My thought was that if council is not opposed, I would ask staff to draft a bylaw or a proposal saying that with just the wording where we could freeze these rates at the current rate.
Director Dakin?
So, through the chair to council, so a couple things. You gotta understand that by not connecting, we still run the pipe past your property. So part of that is, there's still pipe in the ground that we have to maintain as a municipality, and we're on the hook to do that. Even whether you hook up or not, that pipe is still there, it still needs to be replaced. So we need to ensure that we have the financial stability and sustainability to make sure that we look after the assets that we put in the ground. So that's why that fee is there is to sort of offset those costs long term. Secondly, what we can easily do is just when those fees come forward for 2024 is just not increase the non-connect fee. All the other fees would just increase if that's council's desire, and we just not increase the non-connect fee. We can do that as well.
So, I'm just gonna ask anybody on council as we're having the discussion, let's not table a motion until the discussion is finished so that we don't get ourselves in an awkward situation of having to vote on something that's not quite complete yet. So, Councillor Derbyshire has hand up first.
I just had through you to the CAO. When you say we have to pay, they have to pay. Did they not pay for the frontage when it went by their place for the water?
No, so there is no fee. If you don't connect and we put the pipe past your property, there's no fee right now. That's what that 17.5 that we've been sort of playing with to try and figure out how do we sort of best have them hook up. That 17.5 is that piece. So right now, the only fee that you would pay when we go past your property if you're not hooked up is a non-connect fee. There is no other fee that you would pay.
For water?
For water and for wastewater.
I thought it was provincially mandated that as water goes by your frontage, you pay your frontage.
To the best of my knowledge, there's no frontage fee that we charge. I can pass that over to Director Strauss.
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire, so no, it's just the actual minimum frontage fee, but you're not actually paying for the pipe unless you requested to have the pipe brought to your property through like a local improvement program or something of that nature.
All right, sorry, so you do pay as it goes past your property?
Just the minimum not connected fee, not for the actual physical asset there.
Right, the physical asset is the part that goes to your house, right? Okay, so they are actually paying for the pipe that went in front of their frontage. Then
No, just the minimum fee. So it'd be the same, the equivalent right now is the same as your base water fee before you use anything else. You're paying that on a monthly fee, not as when the pipe is put down the street, you're not paying a few $1,000s to have the pipe put in front of your house.
Yes. You're paying a frontage fee. So when it goes down my 100 acres, I pay a frontage fee for it to come down the front of my thing, whether I hook in or not, which across 100 acres was like $8,700. So I don't know what it is to go across, your front yard lottage, but essentially that, a piece of plastic pipe being dug into the ground is $1,000. Do you know what I mean? Or am I lost?
Director Strauss, do you want to?
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire, so if the, I'll just give an example, if you lived beside Strathroy and there was new development on the far side of your farming property that required water main to be passed, you would just be required to pay that minimum not connected fee. You wouldn't have a financial contribution to actually running that water pipe.
So it would only be $47
Yes,
for my non-connection, even to go across my frontage.
correct, unless you had both water and wastewater, and then it would be the two combined.
Then I would pay the non-connection fee.
Correct.
Okay, so as long as we don't pay, I just know when it went past, when the actual pipeline went past our 100 acres, we paid frontage fee. So maybe municipal's different, but, so it was expensive for it to run across 100 acres.
Just through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire, I don't believe we have municipal water main out there.
It was the other side of, the other side of the road where the water ran. That's
So
another,
that would be Southwest Middlesex Water.
It would be.
Rules, not ours. Yes, okay. I believe that Councillor Hippel was next.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Strauss. Fire. So if we were to not increase, if we were to take it out, freeze it, or we were to not increase it, they still get fire protection because it's in there. I mean, everybody gets fire protection. No one jumped down my throat when I say that. But I mean, that was one of the things that it was said, you know, because that's where they hook up and they're using the water, et cetera, et cetera. So that is my question on that one. Everything just still stays the same that way, right?
Through the chair to Councillor Hippel, I guess I'm speaking on behalf of the fire chief, but yes, they would still get fire protection for their property and then wouldn't pay the non-connect, or would freeze their non-connect fee. They'd still get fire protection.
Just a follow-up, and it's actually not on that, but would you, so if they decide, so if someone wasn't connected and they decided they wanted to connect, they sold the house, somebody else comes in and they're like, oh, we completely want to connect, then you just jump right back in and it all goes in smoothly. There's no issues because they haven't been connected before. It all runs smoothly, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Hippel, that might be a loaded question without actually digging up the service, but yes, in hindsight, it should be, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor Grantham.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, through you to Mr. Director Strauss, but maybe to piggyback on what Councillor Derbyshire was saying, not paying frontage, but we pay for the stub, correct? So if you run a line down Lake Queen Street, or we ran it down Bowen by the elementary school, people didn't hook up, but did they still pay? May have been $10,000 at the time, but did they pay for the stub rather than the frontage? So there is some kind of a fee, correct?
Through the chair to Mayor Grantham. So
Sorry.
we brought into council, I think, 5 times, and I apologize if it wasn't this council, but I think it was, with the fee for the sanitary PDC. So that's the stub from just sanitary alone. But we do have currently a mandatory connection fee of $17,500. When we install new sanitary line, we provide a stub to the property line. So that's currently in place.
I just maybe want to redirect the discussion to the not connected fee. This discussion has absolutely nothing to do with construction or anything else. It's just if you're not connected, the request was, are we going to freeze the fee or not? It has nothing to do with any installation of any pipe in the roads. So saying that, I'll
Yes,
bring it over to
and that is to my point. Seems to me the question in front of us is not whether we're getting rid of the fee, but we have a fee and it's going up incrementally on a COLA clause essentially. I wouldn't understand why it wouldn't. Like, it stands to me, all aspects of our water bill and wastewater in this case go up incrementally So the conversation would be different in my mind if we're saying, are we getting rid of it? But it's not. The conversation is, are we continuing on with a COLA clause? And I would not see why we wouldn't. So I see it slightly different. I think that if everybody is getting hit with, and I'll use the term COLA clause, cost of living. If everybody gets hit with the COLA clause, everybody gets hit with the COLA clause. I would not be in favor of segregating that out. Thank you.
Councilor Brandon.
Thank you, Chair. Interesting discussion. In a community, I think whether you're connected to the water system or whether you're not connected to the water system, you're going to derive a benefit, and that was touched on a moment ago with fire protection. If you're not connected to the drinking water system, the water system, and you're charged a minimum fee that goes up with the cost of living each year, you're not being charged for usage of units of water. You know, you're not being charged for that. So but what you are getting is the benefit of a water system that's going to provide you with fire coverage if your house is on fire, and or your neighbor's house is on fire. And you're also getting a benefit because there is a water system in town that provides that, probably with an insurance break. Because if you don't have a water system running by your house or in your community, and you want to insure your house against fire, I'm sure the insurance company's probably going to say, well, gee whiz, you know, if you only had a water system, we wouldn't have to charge you quite as much. So I think there are indirect and direct benefits for people who are not connected to the water system. And I would not see why they would not pay the incremental cost of maintaining that system, which provides public safety in terms of fire coverage. And if we go to the sewers, even if you're not hooked up to the sewer system, there's a public health benefit for you, even if you're not hooked up to it. Because if everybody in town was on septic, we probably would have an untenable situation with our population density, and there would be public health issues. So I think if you're not hooked up to the sewage system, but all your neighbors are, you derive a benefit. You derive benefit because you have good public health with a functioning sewer system, and you live in a community where that exists. Go back to 1850 in town, or 1860 or 70, where there was no sewage system and there were problems. So I think for people to say that they should not be charged incremental fees for maintaining a system that they derive direct and indirect benefits from, even if they're not using them to dispose of their sewage or to get their drinking water, I'd have to concur with the Deputy Mayor. I don't see why we would either get rid of those fees or why we would not have those people pay their fair share of maintaining a system that benefits the entire community and themselves. So I would be against doing away with the COLA clause on this. Thank you.
So I'm going to propose a sit on the fence measure, which should suit all of us, being politicians, right? So we do know that we set these fees once a year, and there's a bylaw, and so any change that takes place wouldn't take place until we present the next fees and services bylaw to council. And what we could do is direct staff to propose both scenarios so we can see what the impact is and decide at the time that the bylaw is being proposed whether or not we're going to freeze the rates or not. That would be my suggestion, but there is a motion on the report. Someone can choose to make that to get it on the floor, because I think now everyone's had a chance for discussion, or they could propose something different. So, Councilor Brandon.
I propose deferring this decision until the annual report on fees is proposed to council.
Deputy Mayor McGuire, do you second that? Then I'm looking for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? So 2 opposed. That carries. So just to be clear, there's really been no decision on this issue. We're waiting on until the next fees and bylaws comes into place so the public understands that. And while I'm bringing my computer back to the next issue, I just will give council a heads up that I'm going to come back to this issue in the inquiries from members of council. So that brings us to item 7.2.2, which is an amendment to municipal service standards. This came out of a discussion out of the Queen Street open house after some inquiries by residents and then discussion between myself and staff that this is something that seems to make common sense, and costing measures have changed drastically over the years for construction methods, so I'll turn it over to Director Strauss to give an explanation.
Thank you through the chair to council. So currently in our municipality servicing standards, anytime that we go ahead and do a reconstruction project, we're typically looking at replacing most of the assets between property line to property line, so all of the public property. And as a result of this, it does impact residents' driveways. So I can just use Queen Street as an example. We are going to be installing wider sidewalks. As part of that, we're going to be providing new services down the road, and then also storm private drain connection. So there's going to be lots of work going right up to property line, and sometimes we have to go past property line onto the private side, whether there's grading issues with changes in elevation. So the big thing with this is the residents' driveways, they are affected. Our current standard suggests that we put asphalt back. It doesn't matter what your existing material is. So if you have a nice concrete driveway, we come in, provide services, put sidewalks in, cut that driveway flush, and then we put asphalt back. So that could result in, if you could look at the roadways built with asphalt, you have a concrete curb, and then between the concrete curb and the concrete sidewalk, you'll have an asphalt apron, and then behind that sidewalk, you'll have an asphalt, I'll call it a sliver, up until your existing material. And if that's concrete, it does come across as an eyesore. And as the chair alluded, the cost differential between concrete and asphalt in today's price is not as drastic as what it used to be. Their costs are very similar. We do have concrete on site, as I just mentioned. We have curbs and sidewalks, so you're not really looking at a minimum concrete charge. It's more cost effective today. So we are looking to change that policy so that if you do have a concrete curb, you get that concrete driveway, you do get that concrete driveway back. There'll be certain measures where if somebody has a stamped concrete driveway, and perhaps it's colored, we'll try our best to match it like for like, and we'll likely offer a color wheel so that the resident gets to choose what they believe is the best match for their driveway. I'm not looking for any additional funding for our current projects that are approved. The reason why we're bringing this forward just as a separate item is to really address that now, rather than just, I'll use the famous term, kicking it down the road further and potentially impacting residents. Well, not potentially, but we will be impacting residents.
So before I open it up to questions and comments from council, one of the pieces that we discussed was if you had a 2-foot sliver of asphalt, you've got to bring some kind of machine in to compact that asphalt to back it down properly, otherwise it's going to fail, which is more costly and potential damaging than actually pouring the concrete, which hardens in place. So to me, that was a really important piece that we could be putting that 2-foot sliver on our property and then having it sink or fail because we haven't had an opportunity to compact it properly given the narrowness of the piece. Yes, Deputy Mayor McGuire?
Just for clarification, I get the end of the driveway to the sidewalk, and I agree with that 100%, the changes that you're proposing. Then we have the cement sidewalk. From the sidewalk to the curb would remain asphalt, though. Is that correct or no? Okay, please, yeah, just give me clarification on that, please.
Yeah, through the chair to Deputy Mayor McGuire. So no, it would be the full driveway. If you had concrete in the boulevard between the curb and the sidewalk, we'd be putting back concrete. So we're looking like for like material, so it doesn't, most people, when we do put in a sidewalk, the neighborhood wants it, but the individual receiving the sidewalk doesn't. I think that that's a share, or a fair share motion to move forward. So that's why we have that here in front of you tonight.
Yes, Councilor Wilsey.
Just reading the wording of that, a question, what happens if the driveway isn't asphalt or cement, if it's, say, gravel, or what do we do at that point? Do we just put it back to gravel? Because it's not clear that, we say with the existing material, we don't say that our standard is asphalt if it's above that, or what happens if it's below that? Just what if it's something different that's not these two we're talking about?
No, so, and I'll go ahead and answer that question because we did discuss it. So if you think of it from a visual impact, if someone had a gravel driveway and we put asphalt or concrete up to the property line and then it reverted to gravel, that would look as foolish as the option where you're going from asphalt to concrete to asphalt to concrete to asphalt to concrete. So the purpose is it's like for like, and if you have gravel, that means it's gone to gravel. If it's interlocking brick, then the interlocking brick would go back in place. Yes, Deputy Mayor McGuire.
I'll make the motion then, as requested by staff.
So just for the public's standpoint, I'll read that. The recommendation that council receive the report EPW 2023-31 for information, and further that council endorse the change in wording proposed by staff to replace like with like. So Deputy Mayor McGuire has made the motion. I'm looking for a seconder. As Councillor Caddis has seconded. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And I believe that means at this point that I turn the meeting back to the mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pelkman. It looks like our presentation is in order, so if we're okay, we'll move back to item 2.1, Strathroy Middlesex General Hospital Foundation. I believe Mr. Roman Lawley, Chair of the SMGH Foundation, will make a presentation. All right, all set to go.
And Your Worship, I've declared an indirect pecuniary interest, so I will leave my seat and move to the body of council. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, Roman.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mayor Grantham and council members. Thank you. So my name is Roman Lawlich. I'm the proud chairperson of the Strathroy Middlesex General Hospital Foundation. And before I talk to you tonight about the Building Foundations project, I want to pass it over to our CEO, Sue McLean, and COO, Ed Wheatley, just to introduce some of our community and project partners that are joining us today in the gallery.
Thank you very much, Roman. Today we have some students who are directly benefiting from the Building Foundations project. And you guys can just stand up. We got. So they're actually working on building the houses, and they're looking at careers in the trades. And so I think that's a very important thing for us to acknowledge. And we also have the principal, Paul Droog. And then we have John Jahushek is one of the, don't ask me how to spell that. He's one of the teachers in the course. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So my role here tonight is twofold. So first of all, I want to thank Council for your ongoing and unwavering support to SMGH Foundation and of course our hospital that we support. And second, I want to talk to you tonight about the Building Foundations project and what we're working on. So if we can just advance to the next slide here. There should be a video that's embedded here, and this just highlights some of the groundbreaking event that took place on April 14th. So I just want to show that just to highlight what we're working towards. Excellent. So the groundbreaking, like I said, took place on April 14th, and at the groundbreaking we had several representatives. We had representatives, students and teachers from Holy Cross Catholic Secondary School, Synergy Realty, JF Homes, Moffat and Powell, Rona and Strathroy, including President Nancy Powell and Strathroy staff, including some municipal and provincial partners. And if we just move to the last slide there, just regarding community benefits. So really this project is a first of its kind. The foundation has never engaged in this sort of work, and thanks to Council's generosity of donating surplus land, it allowed us an opportunity to do a first. So not only are we able to fundraise for our local hospital, specifically in the DI suite through a new MRI, but through partnering with our local high school to have them participate firsthand in trades work. You know, it's one thing to learn in a classroom and learn about the trades and what you need to do, but it's another to actually be boots on the ground and being able to contribute to a project that is going to boost the local economy through partnering with local providers, but also to support our hospital. And at the end of the day, that's really what we're looking to do. This project will help support our MRI. It will bring us affordable housing because we're looking to sell them as affordable houses. And really, when we look at the needs of the hospital over the next period of time and over the next few years, we're not looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain our quality of care, but we're looking into the millions of dollars. And through this project, we're able to work with the community and share the story with the community about the funding model and the misconceptions. You know, so a lot of people think, you know, well, the hospital, it's free. I can go and, you know, get my checkup, go to Emerge, I can go and do whatever I need to do. And the analogy that I always use is, you know, it's like buying a car, but with no engine. And that's essentially the funding model. You know, hospitals are provincially supported for staff, for medicine, for prescriptions, but any of the capital equipment is not included in the provincial funding. So what good is a hospital without a bed, without a bedpan, without elevators, without DI imaging? You know, essentially it's a building with staff and medical equipment or prescriptions. So with this project, we're able to help highlight and share with the community really what the need is. And really what we're hoping is that this council will look to support us further by donating the additional surplus land on Haddon Lane, so that way we can continue to develop these properties and pieces of land to, again, support our local students, to support our local community, both through infrastructure, housing, affordability, as well as to, of course, support our local hospital with the proceeds raised. So with that, I will leave the presentation there, but certainly happy to entertain any questions from council, and again, really want to thank council for their ongoing and unwavering support as we continue to support the local needs of Strathroy Middlesex General Hospital. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Roman. Did any members of the council have any questions? Councillor Palmer.
What is the anticipated revenue or the donation portion that will go back to the hospital from this first project you have going right now?
So with that, I'll pass it over to our COO, Ed, and he'll have some of the numbers for us.
Yes, thank you. We're going to be, so I've got a calculation for all 6 properties. So if we were to go through the whole project building all 6 properties, we'd be looking at something in the range of 1.5 to 2 million that would go back to the hospital.
Any follow-up, Councillor Palmer? Any other questions? Councillor Peltman.
Not a question really about support or not, but I'm just curious. So you've obviously started with one piece and have had the help of the high school students, which helps bring the cost down as well as being a teaching opportunity. What happens during the months that school's not in? Does the project stall, or does the building continue?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is time it so that we can maximize the amount of time the students are on site. So that's why it's important for us to get new land. We have 2 properties that we're working on right now. I know they just infilled, so the kids are busy at it. We want to, in September, October timeframe, be in a position to pour for the next 2 lots, so that come the term in January, February for the kids, that they can spend the whole term on the house. When they're not there, we'll of course continue to build, but the goal is to complete this construction, maximizing the students on site the whole time.
So just to make it clear, then you're still then looking to build 2 homes each calendar year?
You got it, yeah.
Okay. Any other, Councillor Kennis?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment too. I mean, I totally support the hospital and what it's trying to do. I just want to, again, make mention that the primary function of municipality is not healthcare. And we're going through our own budget process right now, and we're finding there are so many needs within our municipality that we're directly responsible for things like roads and sewers and water and recreation and all those types of things. And there's, I think, what's the number? 9 cents of every tax dollar is what municipalities raise versus the 81 cents, the other 2 levels of government. I still believe that primary responsibility for healthcare belongs to the province and the federal government. And I appreciate what you're saying, that much of the capital cost has to be raised privately. But if we as a municipality continue to put more into it, we're just going to those taxpayers and having to tax a higher rate in order to send that money over. So while certainly I support this project and I support the donation of the lots, there is a limit to what we as a municipality can do, even though we all appreciate the importance of the hospital to our community. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Polkman.
Actually, this is completely unrelated to the project, but not unrelated to the piece of property. There needs to be a street light at the corner. It's pretty dark there at night. I did notice that as I drove by.
Thank you. So, any other comments, questions? I'm going to look to my right, to Acting CAO Dakin, for clarification on what we're being asked here today. We're being asked to begin the process to move the 2 remaining lots, correct?
Through the chair to the chair, that is correct. So what is being asked of council tonight is to proceed with the donation of the remaining 2 lots to the Hospital Foundation. They've been approached by Integris to service the existing 2. There's some economy of scale if we can sort of add those other 2 lots to the process, and then we don't have to go back, or they don't have to go back to get those serviced. They can service all of them at the same time. So yes, that is what is being asked of council, is that they would proceed with the donation of the other 2 lots.
Okay. Were there any other questions? Or more, Councillor Pelkman?
Yeah, so I guess my question is, you know, I think we kind of anticipated that these lots would be going to the hospital. I understand the ask, but I guess what happens, you know, we turn these over prematurely to the time frame than what we anticipated. What happens after that? Does that mean then there's a period that we're not giving to the hospital because, you know, we already donated just a fair chunk? So I just want to be clear what happens after.
Through the chair to Councillor Buckman. So my understanding would be that we committed as a council and in the municipality to $100,000 over 10 years for $1 million. This, as pointed out by the COO from the foundation, that we're now in excess of that $1 million. So almost to the point where we've doubled it, 1.5 to 2 million, depending on those lots. So that would, in my mind, would then allow the municipality that they've fulfilled their commitment of the $1 million.
Any other, Councillor Kennis?
And just to follow up on that, so then I would look at this, if we were still continuing to do 100,000 a year, this would be 10 years worth of donations made now.
I'm just gonna chime in for just one last night. I do agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Kennis that healthcare is the responsibility of the province and the federal government. And I do agree with that. However, this is an important cause, and I think we are committed to doing it. And at some points, I think really it's a time frame that's in question. But if we can help our hospital avoid any costs and it helps move the MRI project forward, I would be in favor of it. But again, it's the will of council. But I want to reiterate that I do agree with you, Councillor Kennis, that healthcare is the purview of the province and the federal government, and more it's creeping down to the municipalities. Are there any other questions? Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. I don't even know who it's to. Let's go to, through you to acting CAO. Just clarification then. When we donate all these lots, we will make no more donations for 10 years. Is it, or, I'm just trying to figure out what we're doing.
So I'm gonna look to Sue to help me a bit here. We started our $100,000 donation in 2016, 17? Sorry.
Thank you, and you're trying to pin us all down on when this is done. But no, I'm just joking. We started in 2016. If you wanted to consider that the $1 million would run out in 2026, that's probably realistic. Who knows what is ahead, but at that point, that's how we are seeing it right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I just am trying to get a time frame so that I know, like, it's not 10 years from today. You know, it's just so I have clarity as to what this will basically cover us for 3 years.
We're gonna try to move this one along to motion, so we'll go to Councillor Palmer, then to Councillor Kennis.
But just to get some clarification, so have we been giving $100,000 a year since 2016? Have we been giving, and we're talking cash?
Yeah.
Right? So we've been giving cash in addition to these lots up until this point, is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Palmer. So we have been giving $100,000 cash every year, with the exception of last year, 2022. What are we in 2023? We didn't give any cash last year. What we did is donated the first 2 lots, which were appraised at $350,000. So in our mind, as a municipality, that was basically 3.5 years donation in 1 year. So technically, we've already donated 16 all the way up to 22, $100,000 a year. Then last year we donated $350,000 in essence. So we've kind of pre-funded 2.5 years in my mind, or as a municipality. If we do these final 2, then, and they're appraised at this, let's say they are appraised at the same value, then we're $700,000. So we're beyond our $1 million donation already. So as of tonight, if council passes this resolution, they would have fulfilled their $1 million obligation to the foundation, and we have actually the value beyond just the appraised value of those lots have contributed about $2 million because of the revenue that would come from these sale of these properties.
So just to follow up then, so that would be the end of our financial commitment to the hospital, and if they needed more funds or wanted more funds, they would have to come back with another proposal, which we would then evaluate, correct?
That would, through Councillor Palmer, through the chair to Councillor Palmer, that would be my understanding that yes, we've now exceeded that $1 million donation, so that now is complete, and so anything moving forward would be another request from the foundation.
Okay, so we'll go to Councillor Kennis and to Councillor Pelkman, then we'll bring the motion.
In my mind, this takes us to 2031.
Yes.
That's what he's trying to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Pelkman.
Yeah, so just when we're bouncing numbers around, I think we should focus on the value of the lots and not the value added of the houses on the lots, not, because that's not our, we weren't responsible for that. That was their work and their effort, and I certainly would never want to take that away from them.
No.
So I guess the question that we're being asked is, you know, council owns assets that we could sell to anyone, or are we willing to donate those assets? That's the question that's before us tonight. So I just wanted to clarify that piece.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. So I'll bring the motion that staff be directed to begin the process to donate the balance of the building lots on the lands municipally known as 61 Brennan Drive to the SMGH Foundation's Building Foundations Project. Do you have someone to move the motion?
No, sorry, I don't want to move it.
Okay, Councillor Kenneth?
With the, if I,
You have to make an amendment.
with the addition that this will make our donation, fulfill our $100,000 per year donation to the end of 2031. Is that fair, what I'm saying?
To be honest, you were only on the hook till 2026, so you've actually over contributed. So I'm not sure that, I would just say it would fulfill our obligation for the $1 million contribution that started in 2016.
Well,
We're on that one.
We're only 150.
We've actually donated, by the time this is all done, just between last year's 2022 and these two lots, let's just say they're appraised at the same value, that's over $1 million already just in those last year and this year. Plus, we add in what we've already donated in cash.
Yeah.
But if we again look at this standalone 3 or 6 lots, whatever, however you want to count them, it's about $1.05 million. That's 100,000. If we stick with the 100,000 per year, that's 10 years worth of donations, and that would take us to 2031. So I guess what I'm saying is I won't be here that long, but I wouldn't want to see them back at the table for more money until 2032.
Did you want to add that to the, we'll go to Councillor Derbyshire and try to get this motion.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, maybe we should discuss how we want to go about the money before we do a whole heck of a lot with this. I know we're having a debate about it right here, but maybe this isn't particularly the best spot to figure out whether we want to go to 31 or this or that.
Yeah. So,
I think it's a second and then go for the discussion.
okay, so I got a motion, get a seconder on the motion with Councillor Kenneth's amendment to 2031. Is that a seconder, Councillor Pelkman? Okay, now we'll open it for discussion. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. The amendment is interesting, and I'm not opposed to it, but in 2026, there'll be a new council, and the next council will probably decide what they want to do in terms of hospital donations, independent of what this council says.
I had thought the same thing, Councillor Brennan. Okay, so we have a motion. Councillor Pelkman.
I guess I'm gonna counter with that, with why I think that's why it's important the date's there, because people change, and I would hate, we know the people over there are pretty good, they've been in front of us for a long time, but they'll change too at some point. And I would hate for somebody else to make a presentation to say that council's not supporting the hospital, we're not giving anything, when in reality, we did a lot. And it's very easy for people to forget what we've done in the past and have them coming out with open hand and putting us in a very difficult position when, in fact, we have been supporting the hospital for many years.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. I think we've debated enough. I just want to read it back. Staff shall be directed to begin the process and donate the balance of the building lots on the lands municipally known as 61 Brennan Drive to the SMGH Foundation's Building Foundations Project, and this will be the municipality's obligation till 2031, whatever the verbiage is. That is a motion in front of you. All those in favor? Opposed? If any? One. Carried.
What if they don't agree? What if they don't want the lots, now that it goes that far?
No, they get the lots. It just.
What if they don't? I'm just throwing it out there. That's why I was saying,
They
maybe we
come
should
back.
add a little, what's that?
They can come back to us.
They can give it back to us? Okay.
Okay. I want to thank Roman and your team, Sue and Ed, for joining us this evening, and to the students. Good luck in your future endeavors. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Okay. We'll move on to item 8, reports from boards and committees. Before we make a motion to receive information, were there any questions about any of the minutes from any of the committees? Councillor Wilsey.
On number 8.2, that there's not a lot of detail on the mortgages that it's talking about. I'm wondering if, in addition to the minutes that are there, if we could get an update on the county grant and the funding for Caradoc.
Turn to CO Dakin.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, so the county grant was supposed to go on May the 9th. We apparently didn't make their county council, and I've got a call into the treasurer to find out the status of that. On that piece, the other question was regards to
Just the rest of the financing, everything that's going forward. I know that there's part in the budget, there's the one mortgage we had, but I didn't know if there's anything, other pieces that are missing.
So that one piece is the 1.1 is the final piece to free up the funds for the mortgage. So we have received all of the CMHC grant money, which has been received. So that's the 2.7 million has been received and paid into the project. The last piece is this mortgage that's sitting waiting for First National, and then once the 1.1 is settled, we'll have that settled with as well. So money should be in place.
Any other questions regarding the minutes? Councillor Hippel.
Thank you. Actually, I'm gonna just on top of that really quickly for 8.2, if we don't get the grant from the county, does that change the mortgage number?
Through the chair to Councillor Hippel, no, it doesn't change. It just means that the municipality now holds that 1.1 and will be paying that. In essence, we would be loaning that money to Caradoc Housing. So Caradoc Housing, instead of paying the loan to the county, would be paying a loan to the municipality.
Any follow-up, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, a motion, the reports from boards, the committees, we receive information. Someone to bring the motion. Deputy Mayor McGuire, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Bylaws, we'll turn over to Acting Clerk Jen.
Thank you. So bylaw 15-23 refers to item 4.1 for the construction of the Mill Road drain. So that one is just first and second reading only.
Okay, a motion to receive bylaw number 1523, receive first and second reading only. Councillor Hippel, second by Councillor Wilsey. All in favor? Carried.
And bylaw 28-23, that is a bylaw to provide for the collection of the repairs on certain drains. That's an annual bylaw regarding maintenance billing.
Okay, motion that bylaw number 2823 receive first, second, and third and final read. Someone to carry the motion. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Palmer. All in favor? Carried.
And then bylaw 29-23 refers to item 7.1.2 regarding the Timberview subdivision.
Motion that bylaw number 2923 receive first, second, and third and final reading. Councillor Cass with the motion, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. This is a motion brought forward by myself. I'm going to bring this, I will read the motion. This is in light of the concerns brought forward regarding health and safety, in particular cancer-causing issues within our fire department. So I will read the notice of motion. Whereas the health and safety of members of the Strathroy-Caradoc Fire Department is of paramount importance to Strathroy-Caradoc Council. Be it resolved that the Strathroy-Caradoc Fire Chief be directed to submit a report to Council regarding overall health and safety measures supporting members of the Strathroy-Caradoc Fire Department, including measures to mitigate the risk of exposure to cancer-causing substances, and further, that the report be considered on or before the regular council meeting date scheduled for June 19th, 2023. Are there any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor McGuire.
Comment, thank you. I'm very happy, very pleased to see this being brought forward by yourself. When I read the letter that was circulated about the first time the fire department joined us, it caught my attention very plainly that there was some allegation, I guess, or some comment by them that something that this council was doing or not doing was causing them concern. So I think this is definitely required to find out what exactly is happening and what is going to mitigate it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Hippel, then Councillor Brennan.
Oh, sorry, I actually wasn't gonna comment. You made the motion. I was just gonna second the motion, but I'll be quiet until all the other comments are made. Sorry.
Councillor Brennan, did you have a comment?
Well, just that if in this report, the fire chief could also comment on how this would affect considerations for future design of new firefighting stations. I think that would probably be something that we want to have in there as well. I'm very interested to hear his report. I'd also like to know what recommendations, if any, he might have for fire station design that would meet some of these risks. Thank you.
And I think those are well founded, Councillor Brennan. I think, and I would hope they would come in as part of it, because I know that fire hall design is part of the health and safety measures. So, yeah, CEO Dakin.
Through the chair to Councilor Brennan, so those anticipated health and safety pieces are already incorporated into the current planning that's taking place on the plans that are being drawn up for the current fire hall station 1. So those will already be incorporated into that design. So, but I'm sure that they'll be brought forward in the report as well, but they're already incorporated.
Any others? So were you going to second the motion? Councillor Hippel, all in favor? Carried. Thank you for your support, folks. Move on to item 11, new business. Was there any new business?
There's always new business.
Seeing none, Deputy Mayor McGuire, did you have the County Council report?
Yeah, just a little bit. I wanted to thank Councillor Kennis, Councillor Derbyshire, Councillor Wilsey, Councillor Palmer for joining us at County Council on May 9th. Hopefully you found it entertaining and maybe a little bit informative. One of the things we heard at that meeting was about Bill 97, the same slide, I guess, slide grouping that we saw here tonight. That meeting, County Council opened with recommendation of the Community Emergency Response Volunteers. They go by SERVE. Yeah, you might have seen them out in the community. They do some incredible work. They did a lot of work with COVID, particularly down at the Caradoc Community Center, getting people parked, getting them in and where they needed to be. So there was a big recognition ceremony there. It was great to see, and I congratulate them all. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Okay, inquiries or comments, and we will start this evening with Councillor Pelkman.
Thank you very much. As I said earlier, I was going to come back to the issues we dealt with earlier. It's not the same issue, but something similar. And I feel it's important for me to bring this up, particularly being one of the senior members of council, that in my entire years, and I'm sure Councillor Brennan would agree, there's never been an issue as polarizing for our community as the mandatory connection fee to the sewage system. Prior to, I think it was November of 2021, the bylaw read for, and let's be honest, it was created for Mount Bridges, but even though it applies to the whole municipality, with the installation of the sewer system in Mount Bridges, the rule was that you would pay the non-connected fee as the pipe was installed in front of your house. But since your septic system was still functioning, there was no mandatory connection fee until such a point in time that your septic system failed. We would deny a building permit to install a new septic system, forcing you to connect at that point in time. That was the rule of the law, as I understand it, prior to November of 2021. With the pressures of development in Mount Bridges and previously vacant pieces of property that we wouldn't have thought would have been developed because they're too narrow or whatever, suddenly became viably economic business opportunities for people, and suddenly Queen Street was put on the front and center of the first street in Mount Bridges that's being rebuilt solely because of development and not because of the municipality saying we're going to redo this street, and there's a time frame for when streets are going to get done in Mount Bridges. We made a conscious decision at the time that we were going to put sewers down streets when development paid for the significant portion of the cost of the street redevelopment, and that was the rule as people understood it. I can remember Neil, what was Neil's last name? Councillor Flagel saying, you know, we need to have a plan. We should be doing this street in this year, and this street in this year, and this street in this year. And that never happened because we were waiting for development to pay for the lion's share of the street reconstruction. As a homeowner, and I always try to put myself in the homeowner's shoes when we're ever making a valuable decision, I fought very hard to include a 20-year option from the municipality. But I think I wish in hindsight that I would have fought harder to say that this was not the proper decision. So there are people in the municipality who could pay the 17.5 and not blink an eye, and it's going to be, you know, I can afford to do that and I will do that, and yeah, they got to move some money around or whatever, but it's not going to break them. But there are other people in the municipality who, even at the 20-year servicing option, is basically adding $100 a month to their water bill. Plus they're now paying the not connected fee of another $80 between water and sewer. And then that still doesn't get them connected to the sewer system. Now they've got to get an additional financing piece when they do connect to connect from the property line to their house, which may be the more expensive piece because they've probably got to do some plumbing work in their property. So some people may have difficulty getting financing when they've already gone to the municipality for financing, and now they're going to the bank for financing as well. So I think my wish is that I would like to see the municipality revert back to the way it was before, that there was no mandatory connecting fee until such a point in time that your septic system fails, in which case we deny you a building permit to put a septic system in and force you to connect at that point. And the net effect of that is when the homeowner is going to the financing option, they're only going once and not twice. So the issue that I have, and I'm not bringing forward a motion for that tonight because I think it would be improper, is I don't know what the budgetary consequences of that are for the municipality. And so I would ask for that report to be brought to council, what the impact is, and would it mean that we're facing a decision that when a street is reconstructed by a developer, are we putting those stubs in, or does that not getting that 17.5 at the point of construction mean that it's just going to be the pipe down the center of the road and there's no stubs in, which mean that's going to be, again, more expensive as a whole to the municipality. So that's the question that I'm seeking for tonight, and I'm seeking council support to get that information in front of us.
So you're going to ask for a motion to ask for the...
Well, it could be direction. I'm not sure this point is required to have a motion, but I am looking for support to have that direction to staff to get us that information.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Wilsey.
I would support that, but I'd also like to add an addition to that. There's a lot of map bridges that currently is not connected, and there's a lot of people who are asking to be connected because they have been waiting for the plan to be in 2 or 3 or 4 years from 2011 when the sewers went in, and these systems are 10 years on from at that point. So I would think that if we were to do that, maybe we should do that in together with putting together a plan of what the cost would be to put sewers to the rest of Mount Bridges proper.
We can't afford it. I think would be the answer. We can't afford to reconstruct every street in Mount Bridges. That's the problem, right?
But if we don't have a plan, it's never gonna happen.
Not a debate on this one, because they're just going through our choirs. See what they can.
So, I would just say that, first of all, the servicing of Mount Bridges would be part of the master plan that we are in, coming around right now. So we will have an answer for that. I think what's sort of the utmost importance here is the 17.5 that's been floating around, because we have had several residents reach out wanting to connect. And I had heard rumors that this may or may not be coming up. So I've kind of been playing backstop and trying to hold them off as long as we can till we know whether we need to charge them or not, because I don't want to charge someone, then turn around and have council say, no, we're going to put that aside, and then we have to refund or whatever. So I think if it's okay with Councillor Pelkman, I would suggest that what we do is make that very similar to what the mayor did tonight, that we would bring for a notice of motion next meeting that council could vote on, and then we would get that report in front of council.
So
if that's okay.
I also want to put out there that prior to this individual coming forward, we'd only had one person make plans for the mandatory connection fee. Nobody else has come forward, and we have a deadline that's looming at the end of the year for, I believe it's the end of the year.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Pelkman, it's September, yes, September of this year.
Yeah, so that's coming very quickly, so.
Thank you. And Councillor Wills, I didn't mean to cut you off. You can make your own motion when it makes sure. I will just deal with one at a time. Thank you. Councillor Hippel.
Okay, thank you. The sun is out, the weather is warm, people are happy, people are smiling, they're having a good time, they're golfing, they're out all over the place. And yet, they're still not being safe. And I can't tell you how many roads I go down and the amount of beer bottles, beer cans, alcoholic beverages that are on the sides of the roads. It's disgusting, it's illegal, and you're gonna kill someone. It's planting season. We have Councillor Derbyshire over there who had mentioned this at our last meeting. We have humongous vehicles up and down these roads. You're passing them. I've seen them passing them. We're not driving safe, and some people are driving impaired. I can't, whether or not people that are doing these things are actually even listening to this council meeting, I have no idea. But I can't stress enough how horrific the ending of this could be. And maybe we just need to stop, take a breath, and let's just follow the rules. Drink at home, don't drive while you're drinking. Please stop passing all of the farm vehicles up and down the roads. And let's try to be safe, because any loss of life is a loss. It's a tragedy. So let's be safe. That's all I have for tonight.
No, thank you for that. Echo those sentiments. Councillor Pammer. Deputy Mayor McGuire.
I'm good, thank you.
You're good?
I'm good.
Councillor Kenneth. You're good. Councillor Wilsey.
I won't go in much detail for asking about the sewer connection fee. We'll leave that for a later time. My only comment on that, just in rebuttal to what Councillor Pelkman has said, is that if in fact we are one municipality and Strathroy and Mount Bridges are all together, we have to make sure that we're developing all the way across. Where there's a need, we have to address it. Mount Bridges has had a need that's been pushed down the road for a number of years. We do need a plan, and whether or not it goes forward, but we have to address that. We can't just keep kicking that can down the road. But we can talk about that later.
I think you find most of the council agrees the need for a plan. Councillor Derbyshire.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Just one quick minute. When my kids were little, I used to read them Richard Scarry's Busy Town books. Well, I went for a bike ride today, and boy, was it a busy town. Kemp Drive was being paved. You go in, Briscoe Ave is practically filled in north end of town. Rode up into the industrial lands there, and two great big lots are being cleared for big commercial industrial projects. The Adair Street extension was like a beehive activity. Rode down over to Queen Street, and ripping up pavement, and there's all kinds of construction going on there. Over to Drury Lane and Peach Street, and things were happening over there. Right up Brennan Ave, and there, on that newly named street, you see the foundation poured for the semis putting in for the hospital. So, on a May morning, also you see the amount of grass that was being cut in this town today too by our crews. They were in every park. So just a very, very busy time, and I think people should just recognize that a lot of work and planning has gone into the things that they see happening. And I know it's a lot of things happening at once, but it's a good thing that these projects are being completed. Thank you.
Okay. And nothing for me. The scheduled meetings. Tomorrow night is Finance Committee at 5 p.m. Now make a motion to go in camera. So council will move into closed session to discuss a personal matter regarding Chief Administrative Officer recruitment, a legal matter regarding the former servicing agreement with the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe, and a procedural matter to approve in-camera meeting minutes as permitted by Section 239 of the Ontario Municipal Act and Council's Procedure Bylaw. Have a motion to go in camera. Councillor Kaufman, second by Deputy Mayor McGuire. All those in favor? Carried. Please stand. welcome back, everyone. Returning from in camera, report on that we discussed the recruitment of the CAO and a legal matter regarding the former servicing agreement with the Township of Adelaide Metcalf, and a procedural matter to approve in camera meeting minutes. Second, motion to adjourn the meeting this evening. Councillor Hippel, seconded by Deputy Mayor McGuire. All in favor? Unanimous.
I was gonna vote